This was 1942. We were not expected to go up to the front the way the women do today.
In Vietnam, women had a much different role than men. Today, all that's gone. Those lines have been erased.
I was serving in Iraq, and I was flying a Black Hawk helicopter.
They are a completely different breed of women. I admire them greatly.
These women are resilient, they're intelligent, they have experience.
It's time that we stop being surprised that America's daughters are just as capable of defending freedom and liberty as America's sons.
This was 1942, and of course the war was in full swing. They were recruiting women because they needed more men to go to the front.
While I was in nurses training, we received visits from several recruiting officers. They needed to find nurses to fill the slots in Vietnam, in the hospitals in Vietnam.
I was a graduate student, and I found that I was attracted to friends who were all military, and they encouraged me to take some ROTC classes.
Quite frankly, it seemed like a wonderful opportunity to not be poor while I was in school, but also I didn't have to worry about getting a job when I got out of school.
This war was something that we just had to win, and that's probably one of the reasons I wanted to join up and do my share.
And I loved it. I loved the leadership, I loved the challenges, and so I decided to go for my commission.
I enlisted as a private, but we did not come in as regular Army recruits. We came in as auxiliaries. We did not get the same training as the men at all. We, of course, got nowhere near the battlefront.
I got a call and found that I had orders for Vietnam. And I thought, well, you know, how bad could Vietnam be for nurses? We worked in a hospital. Emergency rooms here in this country never could have prepared us for what we saw. It's hard to, in your mind, picture what the body actually looks like when it's torn apart. That never leaves you.
I selected aviation as a result of the policy banning women from serving in combat. So I felt that if I was going to have equal rank and equal pay to my male counterparts, that I wanted to take equal risk. I was serving in Iraq as part of an aviation battalion, a task force, and I was flying a Black Hawk helicopter. We were 10 feet above the treetops when we flew basically into a barrage of gunfire. And one of the RPGs hit us. It exploded in my lap. It vaporized my right leg and amputated my left and took off most of my right arm. I recovered at Walter Reed Army Medical Center. I was surrounded by other wounded warriors. We all had the same mission, which was we all wanted to get well and go back to our units. What I'm doing now is essentially what I did in the hospital, which is continue to take care of my buddies and of our warriors after, you know, they've served this nation.
Historically, women were not really recognized as veterans. The Center for Women Veterans was first established in 1994 by Congress, and the purpose of that was to monitor the programs and services that VA offered to women veterans. There's been a lot of changes over the years, but there still needs to be education to really help people understand the contributions of women.
In 1943, there was a turnover, and we became legally part of the Army as the Women Army Corps. We were very proud of the fact that they thought enough of us to make us part of the regular Army.
And I wish someone had said that to me before I went over. Do you know you're going to be a part of history? Not only because of being in Vietnam, but because of being a woman veteran at that time.
I could not have become a Black Hawk helicopter pilot in 1993 had the WACs not been there. Had the nurses in Vietnam not been there in the thick of the fighting, I stand on their shoulders.
On the role of women in Iraq and Afghanistan, I've got nothing but admiration for the women there. They're no longer in isolated barracks. They're up in the front. They're just as important as the men now.
And I think the women of today realize how much sacrifice was made by the women that came before them. And they also know that they're laying the groundwork for a lot of the women that are still yet to come.
Think about the young women out there. So they say to themselves, if she did that, I can do that, I can do more.
When I walk into a meeting with other men who are at the very highest levels, they know I'm a combat vet. That argument just goes right off the table. Now let's talk about what we need to talk about to get the job done. There's no need to compare who is in combat and who's not, because I've been there.
War is war is war. It's dirty, it's painful, there's human lives lost, and that's one thing that's shared by anyone who served in the military. And when somebody says they were in a war, no matter what, we know we're connected.